Test. Okay. You're reading on Sabbath afternoon. I'm going to read the memory text, and you just read the little couple paragraphs, a few paragraphs underneath.
Check.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sabbath School. Those that are here, those online, we're glad you're here with us, joining us for Sabbath School. It's lesson number 7, Defeat of the Assyrians. And this was a very interesting lesson. Yeah, let's have prayer and we will begin. Loving Father in heaven, thank you that we can come and study Isaiah, the great book. See how you are working in a mighty way, how we can trust you, how you will not let us down, that you are in control, and we can give our lives to you. So help me as I'm teaching, to be a good teacher, good facilitator. Those that are here as we are discussing and talking, that will encourage one another. In Jesus' name, amen. The memory text, Isaiah chapter 37, verse 16, New King James Version. O Lord of hosts, God of Israel, the one who dwells between the cherubim, you are God, you alone. Of all the kingdoms of the earth, you have made heaven and earth. Dennis, would you read Sabbath afternoon's little paragraphs underneath?
A gaunt man walked barefoot with his 2 sons. Another family has loaded all their belongings into an X-cart pulled by a maxinated oxen. A man leads the oxen while 2 women sit on the cart. Less fortunate people have no cart, so they carry their possessions on their shoulders. Soldiers are everywhere. A battering ram smashes into the city gate. Archers on top of the ram shoot at defenders on the walls. Hectic carnage reigns supreme. Fast forward, a king sits grandly on his throne, receiving booty and captives. Some captives approach him with hands upraised, pleading for mercy. Others kneel or crouch. Descriptions of these scenes with the king begins with the words, Sennacherib, king of the world, king of Assyria, and continues with such expressions as sat in the Nema throne, and the booty of the city of Asheph passed in review before him. These series of pictures, which one adorned on the walls of Sennacherib's palace without a rival, are now in the British Museum, and what a story they have to tell about the plight of God's professed people.
Okay, the scenes of war are pretty sad, isn't it? To see what happens when one nation attacks another nation and the carnage that happens. Sunday's lesson says strings attached, and we're going to mainly stick with Isaiah chapter 36, even though there's other chapters that are parallel. We'll just do Isaiah chapter 36. In Isaiah chapter 36, verse 1, and the question is, what happened to Judah? And I'll read this one. Now it came to pass in the 4th year of King Hezekiah, that Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and took them. So here he is on the scene, coming into Judah, and he wants the land. Now, it's interesting here that Ahaz, Hezekiah's father, had passed away. He died. And what kind of kingdom did Hezekiah inherit?
He did evil in the sight of the Lord.
No, that was Ahaz did evil, yes. But the kingdom was basically under Assyria. So it had lost full independence, it says here. And having purchased Assyria's help against Syria and against Samaria, or Israel, he basically, Ahaz lost the independence. So now here they are under Assyria. And what was Assyria looking for every year, since they were the ones who was overseeing? Tribute. Moolah. So, and I'm sure it was probably a hefty price, too. And the protection money, it says here, a form of tribute. So King Sargon II died in a war. Sennacherib in 705 came to the crown. And at that time, Assyria seemed vulnerable. And Hezekiah says, here's our chance. They look weak. Perhaps we can break from the bondage we're in and cast these people off. So he formed a coalition of other smaller kingdoms, and they rebelled. But he made a mistake. He thought Assyria was weak, but actually, what were they?
Very strong.
They were still strong. Yeah, he underestimated, the ability for them to survive, and to resilience, it calls it here. So Sennacherib has to do other parts of the empire. Now he lashed out against Syria-Palestine with devastating force, and it says he ravaged Judah. He ravaged Judah. So, okay, you guys want to rebel? I'll show you what it's like to rebel against me. So why were the kings so harsh when things like this happened? What were they trying to set a precedent for of other people in their realm or other kingdoms?
Yeah, they were trying to scare them, so that they would all, would not fight against them, obviously.
Okay, yeah, they wouldn't want to rebel because they realize, being under me and paying tribute is a lot better than what's going to happen to you if you try to walk away or get me to walk away. So it says here, the question is on Sunday's lesson, how did Hezekiah prepare for a confrontation with Assyria? So he knew they were coming. They were already at Lachish. And so let's take a look here. And Rosetta, would you like to read 2 Chronicles? This is one we'll read in 2 Chronicles 32, 1 through 8. And let's see what Hezekiah did to get ready for what he knew was coming. There was no doubt in his mind. Chapter 32, verses 1 through 8.
After these things and the establishment thereof, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and entered into Judah, and encamped against the fenced city, and thought to win them for himself. And when Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib had come, and that he was purposed to fight against Jerusalem, he took counsel with his princes and his mighty men to stop the waters of the fountains which were without the city, and they did help him. So there was gathered much people together, who stopped all the fountains and the brook that ran through the midst of the land, saying, why should the king of Assyria come and find such water? Also he strengthened himself and built up all the walls that was broken, and raised up to the tower and another wall without, and repaired Millo in the city of David, and made darts and shields in abundance. And he set captives of war over the people, and gathered them together to him in the street of the gate of the city, and spoke comfortably to them, saying, be strong and courageous. Be not afraid, not dismayed, for the king of Syria, nor for all the multitude that is with him. For there be more with us than with him. With him is an army of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God, to help us and to fight our battles. And the people rest themselves upon the word of Hezekiah, king of Judah.
Okay, so they're coming. He talks to his mighty men. And what's the first thing they decide to do in verse 3? Yeah, the water supply. And So why were they stopping up the water supply outside of the city?
So the enemy wouldn't have any water.
Abundance of water, good place to be.
Okay, so when the Assyrians came, hey, if you have water, you can last a long time in battle. But if there's not much water, then it's a struggle to try to haul it in. So he was thinking in advance, okay, you got to do things to hurt this army. And so we're going to stop up the water springs. And then what else did he do in verse 5?
He built up the walls and increased their weaponry.
Okay, that's right. So he's really fortifying those walls, the towers, making weapons, and getting ready. He's preparing. Preparation goes a long way to be successful when you prepare. And then the last thing he had to deal with the people. They see what's going on. They know what's coming. How do you think the people inside the city were feeling?
Very scared.
They were scared. The Assyrians were vicious people. I think, was it Nineveh, the capital of Assyria? Yeah. And they would impale people, and they would do all kinds of, they were cruel. So they realized what was coming. So Hezekiah said, okay, got the water secured, got the walls, towers, all these great, weapons. Now I need to settle down my people. And how did he do that?
He told him to be strong and courageous and be not afraid of the king, for the Lord was with them.
Okay, now I'm sure Hezekiah had that too in his countenance, that we can hold off, we can do this, and we can do it because of God is with us. Mm-hmm. God is on our side. And it's interesting that Hezekiah actually excelled where his father fell flat on his face. And he didn't trust God. The story could have been so much different. So why was Hezekiah different than his dad? How does that happen? I know it doesn't say in the text, but just a little imagination here.
He must have had a good mother.
Okay, yes. Yeah, just like Josiah, a couple of weeks ago I talked about Josiah, how he overcame with his dad, and then Manasseh was his granddad. He came from a really wicked line of men. And Hezekiah, somehow the Lord touched his heart. And do you think he could have learned something from his dad? You don't always learn from people things that work. Sometimes you watch people and you see things that don't work. And he may have been thinking, when I grow up, I'm not doing that. So he probably understood what his dad did and how his dad was acting toward God, towards Isaiah. And he learned some lessons that this blew up on my dad's face. I'm going to be a better man than that. And it really worked for him. So, yeah, that spiritual leadership in a frightening time was just as important as all the fortifications he was building. He was fortifying his people. Because once the people start freaking out, that could really be a hard say. No, let's give up, let's surrender, and Hezekiah didn't want to go that way. So let me ask a question in the green box here. If Hezekiah trusted the Lord so much, why did he put forth so much effort on his own? Did his works negate his faith?
No, we're required to do some work as well.
Oh. Go ahead.
We're required to do some work and show, some, the Lord requires us to do something as well.
Okay.
Just not rely on Him all the time.
Okay. Yeah. So if he's prepared and the army comes, then God can do what for him? Bless him. Bless his men to fight 5 times harder than they normally fight. Make the arrows go straighter. Whatever things they're launching over the city wall with catapults. I don't know if they had them back then, but God could give them a great victory. Just like with Gideon. Gideon had 300 men, and he was able to win. We'll talk about him later on in this lesson.
Pastor, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Is that tying into to whom much is given, much is required?
Oh, good question. So you're talking about Hezekiah. He was given much, so God was expecting much. You know what? I think building the walls was an act of faith, that he wasn't giving up, that God could do something for him if they did their part. If the walls are broken down, no, they didn't have any weapons. The water's out there free. The people are afraid inside. What chance did he have? He didn't have any chance. So he's actually putting himself in the best position for God to work. It's the same thing with us, how we live our lives. We live a way in such a way that God can bless us and help us to be successful spiritually. And that's why we do our devotions. That's why we pray. That's why we go to church and meet with him in a special way on his day. It's nice to be here with our people in the church, and it's nice. It's fun. I look forward to coming here because of you on Sabbath. You are a driving force, the people, because I'm with my people and my friends and my congregation. But I guess if I can say, the frosting on the cake is really we're meeting with God. God is here, and I'm connecting with him and showing faith that I trust him, I love him, I'm honoring him on a Sabbath day as the Creator. He's Lord of my life, and I'm here as an act of worship for him. And apparently Hezekiah understood that he needed to do his part. And it really worked out well. So it wasn't an act of unbelief, it was actually an act of faith, preparing the way he did. Now, Monday's lesson, propaganda. We hear a lot of propaganda, don't we, these days? Sometimes I'll listen to one radio station, and they're talking about events in the U.S., and you change to another radio station, you're wondering what country they're talking about. Two different totally views. Propaganda. And so Sennacherib sent out Rabshakeh, one of his high officials, to Jerusalem. And he had to, there's a lot of ways to take a city. You could starve it out, you could storm it, or you could talk them out. What's the least expensive way to take a city? Talk them out. We'll be good to you if you come out, and we'll move you away to some other land, and you'll be okay there. But if you don't come out, then you face...
But he even told them they could stay, eat from their own vineyards and drink from their own wells.
Yeah.
Just pay the money.
Just pay the money. Yeah, and I'm still the boss. Well, let's take a look here in Isaiah chapter 36. And let's take a look. The question is, what arguments did, I hope I'm saying this right, Rabshakeh used to intimidate Judah? Chapter 36, and it's verses 2 through 20. And I'm going to, Rusty, read one. We're going to take this in chunks, because every few verses he has a new idea, a new argument, a new way of weaseling in to get what he's ultimately trying to do, is to get the people to surrender. So you do 1 through 3.
1 through 3 or 2 and 3?
Oh, yeah, just 2 and 3. That'll work.
Okay, well, I'll do starting in verse 2. And the king of Assyria sent Rabshakeh from Lachish to Jerusalem unto King Hezekiah with a great army, and he stood by the conduit of this upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field. Then came forth unto him Elkim, Hilkiah's son, which was over the house, and Sheben the scribe, and Joah, Ashan's son, the recorder.
Okay, so Rabshakeh is outside, and apparently Eliakim goes, Shebna goes, Joah goes, and they came out to him. I don't know how much the distance there was. So there's a face-off outside the city. they're out there now. We're representing Hezekiah. You're representing Sennacherib over there. And now, Rabshakeh, what does he do? And I'm going to have Thomas, if you would read 4 through 6. And let's take a look at this argument here, or persuasion might be a better word.
the field commander said to them, "Tell Hezekiah, this is what the great king of Assyria says. On what are you basing this confidence of yours? You say you have strategy and military strength, but you speak only empty words. On whom are you depending that you rebel against me? Look now, you are dependent on Egypt, that's split what's that? Split a reed of a staff which pierced a man's hand and wound him if he leans on it. Such is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all who depends on him."
Okay, so what is he cutting away here to take away hope from Israel? You're trusting in
Your allies.
your allies. Yeah, but he's pretty weak. Just a weak reed. And so don't think he's going to help you. I mean, he can't help you because we'll take him out too. So don't trust your allies. They're not coming. The cavalry's not over the hill, ready to charge to your rescue. You're here alone. I guess isolation can be a great way of breaking people. You know, they put people in solitary confinement and things. So you guys you're isolated. It's just us and you.
That is when Satan does his best job, is when we isolate ourselves.
Yes. Well, who's really speaking here? Yeah, it was Satan was really the one. He's the god of war. He's a destroyer. So what's he doing? He's helping Assyria to take out Judah. Because what happens if Judah is destroyed?
Yeah, the lineage of David.
The lineage of it, yeah, and it brings it here later on, and I think on this day, or one of the other days, that they're done. If Judah goes into captivity and they're dispersed all throughout all the nations around, what does Satan? Chalk that one up for me, you know. Okay, so now we're going to go, Rosetta, if you would do 7 through 9. Did I do that right?
But if thou say to me, we trust in the Lord our God, it is not he whose high places and whose altar Hezekiah has taken away, and said to Judah and to Jerusalem, ye shall worship before this altar. Now therefore give pledge, I pray thee, to my master, the king of Assyria, and I will give thee 2,000 horses, that thou be able on the part to set riders upon them. How then wilt thou turn away the face of one captain of the least of my master's servants, and put thy trust on Egypt for chariots and for horses? How far you say?
To verse 9.
Oh,
I think you're good there. Okay, what's he saying here in these verses?
You've done tore down all of the altars.
Okay. And we'll talk about we're going to flesh that out just here in a few minutes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, all the high places and all the altars Hezekiah has taken away. So he's actually, he didn't understand God very well. Actually, taking away the altars is the very thing that probably brought the power of God on them. But let's go to Dennis 10 through 12, and let's see how else he's trying to persuade them to surrender.
Verse 10. And am I now come up without the Lord against the land to destroy it? The Lord said unto me, go up against this land and destroy it. Then said Elkacam and Sheba and Joah unto Rabasheth, Speak, I pray, unto thee, thy servants, in the Syrian language, for we understand it, and speak not to us in the Jews' language, in the ears of the people that are all on the wall. But Rabasheth said, Hath my master sent me unto the master, and to seek and to speak these words? Hath not he sent me to the men that sit upon the wall, that they may eat their own dung and drink their own piss with you?
Pretty graphic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty graphic. So, here's probably greatest presumption of this man here. Who did he say sent him to destroy Jerusalem?
God.
God did. Isn't that that is amazing. Yeah, God sent us here to take you out. You removed all his high places here. Now we're here at his command to do you in. That's quite a daring thing, isn't it? Yeah.
He's saying, you trust in God. God's the one that sent us.
What's it tell us about the strategy of these men? You know, these are highly intelligent, well-trained warriors. So what type of warfare are they using here with these words?
Psychological.
Okay, psychological warfare. Yeah, and that can be really powerful and can psych out your opponent. And
Last night, when I was listening to one of the programs, they said that this Rabasheth, that was not really his name, but that was a title.
Yeah.
That title really meant, I mean, he was like the in charge of the king's army. He was the head of the defense department. And so that was kind of his title of, you know, in charge of all the warfare.
yeah, and I think Thomas's Bible actually had that title for him. So this is a highly trained man who had probably been in a lot of battles, and he knew exactly what he was doing.
Absolutely.
He was just fearless, knowing that he could somehow, if he could get the psychological edge, that's like already 1 foot in the door. If the army's going to be broken even before you start fighting. Matter of fact, you're going to be so desperate for food when we're done, you're going to be eating and drinking your own waste. And we know in some of these sieges, Moses said, "You guys get bad army siege, you're going to be eating your own children," and that did happen.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it did happen. So let's take a look now. Rusty, 13 through 17.
Then Rabashah stood and cried with a loud voice in the Jews' language and said, Hear ye the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus said the king, Let not Hezekiah deceive you, for he shall not be able to deliver you. Neither let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, saying, The Lord will surely deliver us. This city shall not be delivered unto the hand of the king of Assyria. Hearken not to Hezekiah, for thus saith the king of Assyria, Make an agreement with me by a present, and come out to me, and eat ye every one of his own vine, and every one of his fig tree, and drink ye every one the waters of his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of corn and wine, a land of bread and vineyards.
Okay, next argument for persuasion. Don't.
Trust God. Don't trust Hezekiah.
That's it. Now he's working on the leader. You can't trust your leader. So God sent us here, and you can't trust him. So once you don't trust your leader,
Yeah, that's when it starts breaking down.
that's when
the
things start
ranks.
breaking down. And I think Hezekiah earlier, when he was encouraging the people, he was establishing himself as a leader. He was in there, fight, be encouraged. God's on our side. So he was exhibiting actually leadership skills. So how does a person get leadership skills? Oh,
Being in the trenches with them.
okay, being in the trenches, in there you learn leadership skill by actually doing a job. Yes. Maybe he had schooling. Maybe they had schooling for their officers, and maybe Hezekiah learned it that way. Maybe he saw what was going on other places, and he watched other leaders in the kingdom, and he learned some things. And of course, the Holy Spirit is the one who can really help them, help us. So, don't trust your king. God sent us here. Don't trust Egypt. Basically, he's trying to list step by step, taking away everything they were trusting in.
Yeah, but he gave away his long-term plan when he said, until I return, and then I'm going to take it all away from you. So you just pay up now, and then I'm going to come back later and take it all myself.
Yeah, I'm not moving you out. But you're going to be alive.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be alive. At least you'll be alive. At least you won't be 6 feet under. I'll read 18 through 20. Beware lest Hezekiah persuade you, saying, the Lord will deliver us. Has any one of the gods of the nations delivered its land from the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath, Arpad? Where are the gods of Seraphim? Indeed, have we delivered Samaria from my hand? Who among all the gods of these lands have delivered their countries from my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem from my hand? Okay, now another daring. So what's he telling them? All these other countries?
All fallen dust.
All fallen to us. And they all had their gods, and their gods probably ended up in fire. None of their gods helped. What makes you think what? Your God's any different than them. So, later on, this is where Hezekiah actually has a prayer. God, your honor's on the line, but I'm jumping ahead a pinch. So now, can't trust in Egypt, can't trust in your leader, and God can't help you either. So just give it up now. It's over. You're checkmated even before the game started. So let's ask a question. Where was he telling the truth and where was he not telling the truth?
Well, he was telling the truth that the other gods didn't help their countries save them when they were attacked. Those other countries' gods.
That's right.
He wasn't telling the truth on God sent him.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, God sent him, and God can't help you. Don't trust the Lord. It's interesting. The Lord sent me here. He has power to take you on, but if you trust him, it doesn't work for you.
Doesn't the word say, trust no man? Does God say, trust no man?
Yeah, don't put our trust in man. Yeah, I mean, I can trust Rusty to do a good job if he, comes to my house, works on my furnace, and be an elder. And there's things we can trust humans on, but there's areas where it's just God only. So we all want to be trustworthy. We all want to be trustworthy, but I can't save anybody else spiritually. There's some things I don't have the ability to help somebody with. You need to find another person or professional. And so where did we see this type of mixture of truth and error in the Bible?
And Lucifer.
Yeah, Lucifer. Yes. What happened in the Garden of Eden? If you eat from this tree, you shall know good and evil and be like God. Did they learn the good and evil?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't the way he pictured it. It wasn't a good thing, was it? It was a bad thing, and they were not like God. So we see the devil is a master at mixing things up again.
Satan is a deceiver.
Yes. Well, what about in Jesus' wilderness temptation? What was Satan quoting? Turn these stones into bread, and I should say, what was Jesus quoting to refute what he was saying about turning the stones into bread? Man shall
Not live by bread alone.
That's right, but every word proceeded out of the mouth of God. Yes. Oh, let me take up on the pinnacle. Oh, the angels will take care of you, and let you dash your foot against a stone. Cast yourself off. What did he say?
It is written.
It is written.
It is written. That's right.
Live by bread alone.
Yes. Yes. No, we're not to put God to the test. It would have been presumption for him to do that. So what about bow down and worship me. All these kingdoms are mine.
It is written.
Well, that was a partial.
God, and him only shall
That's right. That was a. Those kingdoms may have been his in the sense that he had usurped them, but eventually Jesus knew all those kingdoms were going to be his. So saying that's only a temporary truth. That's not a permanent truth. You are the prince of the power of the air, but that's because you hijacked the planet, you kidnapped it, but I come back to rescue it. And why should I bow down to you? If I go through the plan, I'm going to get it as a gift from my Father, and the kingdom will be mine. That's what we see in Daniel chapter 7. Jesus goes in and he receives the kingdom. So, yeah, the devil, and we need to be careful that he doesn't mess with our brains. Because he will. He will mess with our brains.
That is what the war is, isn't it?
Excuse me?
That is what the war is, the battle of the mind.
Okay, the battle of the mind. Yes. Because once he wins the mind, then he wins the heart. Let's take Tuesdays here. Shaken, but not forsaken. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 36. We're there. Verses 21 to 37:4. Shanna, would you mind reading? Do you have a mic?
What verses?
Oh, hold on a second. 1 second. Don't share mics. My fault.
Okay, I can yell.
Blame it on me.
What am I reading?
Chapter 36 of Isaiah, verses 21 through chapter 37, verse 4. And the question is, how did the clever oratory of Rabshakeh affect Hezekiah and his officials?
But they held their peace and answered him not a word, for the king's commandment was, do not answer him. Then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, Sebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph, the recorder, came to Hezekiah with their clothes torn and told him the words of Rabshakeh. And so it was, when King Hezekiah heard it, that he tore his clothes, covered himself in sackcloth, and went into the house of the Lord. Then he sent Eliakim, who was over the household, Sebna the scribe, and the elders of the priests, covered with sackcloth, to Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos. And they said to him, thus says Hezekiah, this day is a day of trouble and rebuke and blasphemy, for the children have come to birth, but there is no strength to bring them forth. It may be that the Lord your God will hear the words of the Rabshakeh, who his master, the king of Assyria, has sent to reproach the living God, and will reprove the words which the Lord your God has heard. Therefore lift up your prayer for the remnant that is left.
Okay. So what did Hezekiah do? Rent his.
He told people not to reply to him first. Don't answer him back.
That's right, because you don't want to get into that argument. Just
But he was humbling himself before the Lord.
okay. Humbled before the Lord, and then he needed a word from the Lord. So what did he do that his father didn't do?
He sent them to go get Isaiah.
That's right. Went to go to see a word from the Lord. Go to Isaiah. So it's amazing that he did. If his father, maybe 20 years earlier, I'm not the time frame, would have did that when he had the choice to ask a sign. No, I'm not going to ask a sign. If he would have followed, maybe where they were there now might not have ever happened. So sooner or later, we're going to turn to the Lord. It should be sooner, right? God has a way to keep working on us until we turn, but he has to turn the heat up. Now, with Hezekiah, he didn't need to turn the heat up. He was already hot with God. But God just works to somehow move us to him. And we need to humble ourselves. You know, when you look at people like Joash and Hezekiah with their background, it reminds me of the story about Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. They were priests, and they were contending with Moses for leadership. And then there was a great showdown, and the land swallowed up Korah, Dathan, Abiram, and their families. But later on, in the Chronicles, when it's chronicling the people, Korah's relatives were in that list. That means you can come from a family that's rebellious, but you yourself can be faithful. It's not a death decree for you. If your parents or family members are radicals and never really come into line, you can still be saved. And we see that with some of these kings, and we see that with Korah's family. There they are, part of the priesthood. Some of them survived. Some of them walked away and didn't get involved. So these stories are for us too. And we may have been rebels at one time, but we can come back and turn our hearts to the Lord. So let's go here. Dennis, chapter 37, verses 5 through 7. How did God encourage Hezekiah?
So the servant of the king Hezekiah came to Isaiah, and Isaiah said unto them, Thus shall you say unto your master, Thus saith the Lord, Be not afraid of the words that thou hast heard, wherewith the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Behold, I will send a blast upon him, and he shall hear a rumor and return to his own land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land.
Okay. How long was that message?
Not long.
It was long enough.
That's right.
Right? That's all God had to say. Here's these sentences, short, sweet, to the point. He's going to go away. He's going to die in battle, and I'm going to deliver you. So God just was right to the point here. I know the blasphemy. I heard everything he said, and I'll take care of it. So now let's take a look here at Hezekiah's prayer. And Rusty, so it says here, how did Hezekiah's prayer identify what was at stake at Jerusalem's crisis? In it's chapter 37, 15 through 20.
15 through 20.
Yes.
And Hezekiah prayed unto the Lord, saying, O Lord of hosts, God of Israel, that dwellest between the cherub, thou art the God, even thou alone. Of all the kingdoms of all the earth, thou hast made heaven and earth. Incline thine ear, O Lord, and hear. Open thine eyes, O Lord, and see. And hear all the words of Sennacherib, which hath sent to reproach the living God. Of a truth, Lord, the king of Assyria, have laid waste on all the nations and their countries, and have cast their gods into the fire, for they were no gods, but the work of men's hands, wood and stone thereof they have destroyed them. Now therefore, O Lord our God, save us from the hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that thou art the Lord, even thou only.
Okay, so what was at stake in Rabshakeh's talk? Your God can't help you. Your God can't help you. He's powerless like every other God. So don't trust in him. So what is God saying? You can trust me. Isaiah knew that too. He understood, which, all these other gods, they're not gods at all. And, your reputation's on the line. And it's interesting, Moses used the same strategy, if I can use that, with God when the people were rebelling. God said, I'm going to destroy all of them. What did Moses reply?
Don't destroy all of them
Yeah, don't destroy them, because the people say you weren't strong enough.
if you can find.
to bring them out. You know, you weren't strong enough to bring them out, so you destroyed them here because you couldn't deliver all the way through. And I think God was testing Moses' resolve to come up and stand for the people. And God said, I'll take them. I'll take a group in. I can deliver. And I think that's the whole thing about faith, is we believe God can deliver. Right? Why do we worship him? Because he has promised us eternal life. Why do we live the way we live and profess what we profess? Is because God is the true living God. And like Hezekiah, we come before him when we have problems and kneel down and just plead with him to help us with whatever's going on in our life. Now, there's a backside of the coin here. In the time of Gideon, God told Gideon, go chop down your father's idols. Oop. Oh, okay, you can do it at nighttime. What would have happened to Gideon if he would have been there, him and his men, chopping down those poles or trees, whatever they were worshiping during the day?
They would have been attacked by their countrymen.
Okay, the countrymen would have attacked them. So God said, okay, you can do it at night. And I thought about that. No, idol worship sometimes is so deeply rooted. It has to be, you have to attack it at night, when in a way that people aren't suspecting, to take it out. So the next morning, the men go there, everything's knocked down. Who did this? Oh, Gideon did it. Kill him! Let's kill him! And Gideon's father steps up. Hold on, guys. And what was Gideon's father's strategy to stop the men from killing his son? If Baal is God, let him take out my son. Right? If Baal really is, let him deal with my son, and let him fight his own battles. So what happened to Gideon? Nothing. Because why? Baal is not a true God. So we have a God that delivers. He's a God who can do what he says he can do. He can come and rescue us. So Hezekiah, what did he do? He prayed. Now for Wednesday's lesson, in the London Museum, the Sennacherib's wall, where he has they must have taken it from Assyria and brought it there, about the battle about Lachish and how he won that one. And then he says, I pinned Hezekiah in his city. But it doesn't say anything besides that, does it? Because he could never get in the city. Yeah, he can never get in the city. And so that story makes that king look great, but not as great as he thought. So let's take a look at the rest of the story here. It's Isaiah 37, and it's actually quite a few verses here, 21 through 28. Well, let's just tell the story. So God says he's not coming in, he's going to die. And how did God finally defeat that army?
Sent an angel.
He sent an angel.
Killed 185,000.
Yeah, but just say here, the body count was high. 185. That's almost, where did we see that before, an angel coming and doing a lot of damage? In Egypt. Isn't it interesting? These stories have shades going, between them of how God works. So we see it in Egypt. God going through the last plague, killing the firstborn. We see the angel here, 185,000 Assyrians. So what did Sennacherib do after he lost? He had to leave. What do you do? He just left. The last paragraph here says, the God of the Hebrews had prevailed over the proud Assyrian. The honor of Jehovah was vindicated in the eyes of the surrounding nations. In Jerusalem, the hearts of the people were filled with joy. That's from Prophets and Kings, page 361. Also, if Sennacherib had conquered Jerusalem, he would have deported the population in such a way that Judah would have lost its identity as northern Israel did. From one perspective, then, there would have been no Jewish people to whom the Messiah could be born. Their story would have ended right there, but God kept hope alive. So was it fair of God to wipe out 185,000 men? That's a little green box there. Ask that question. Was it fair? Yeah, it was fair. Because what was happening? It was war. So, what did God do? He defended his people. There's a concept that God will destroy the many to save the few. We see 8 in Noah's day. But he had to destroy the many to save the few, because eventually, if it would have went on longer, who knows what would have happened to Noah? Maybe they would have killed him. We don't know. So God will save the few and destroy the many. Second coming. What happens at the second coming to God's people? We're up, right? And what happens to the rest of the world? Yeah, they're destroyed. And it's not that God's a bloodthirsty God. He's just coming to rescue his people because they're trying to exterminate us. If we don't get the mark of the beast, it says they're going to be killed. So what's he going to do? He's coming to save us. He did the same thing with the Gibeonites. After they tricked Israel, they worked for a while, they went home. And I think it was 5 tribes around them were mad because they made a covenant with Joshua. So they were attacking the Gibeonites, and they sent a message to Joshua. So Joshua shows up with his army. And in the battle, what does God do? He sends hail to destroy all the enemies. And more were killed by God in the hail than were killed by Joshua's soldiers. So he was protecting this pagan tribe who tricked Israel into a covenant, and God honored that covenant with them, and it did protect them. But I think God reads the hearts, that if we're worshiping him the best we know how, and I think the Gibeons, they wanted to be saved, they just didn't know how. So they said, we want to be saved, this is the best we can concoct this plan, but God knew that they really wanted to be saved. And so God works in just marvelous ways to save his people. That's the point I'm trying to drive at. Thursday's lesson. Now, all of a sudden, things don't look so good for Hezekiah. The second paragraph says, Satan was determined to bring about both the death of Hezekiah and the fall of Jerusalem, reasoning, no doubt, that if Hezekiah were out of the way, his efforts at reform would cease and the fall of Jerusalem could be more readily accomplished. So what happened to Hezekiah that he made a big blunder?
Looking at himself.
Okay. Well, he got sick.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he got sick, and he was dying. And what did he do when Isaiah shows up? Get your house in order. You're going to die. Isaiah's walking out, going down, and what's Hezekiah doing? Lord, I don't want to die. Save me. Look at all the things I've done. So God taps Isaiah on the shoulder and whispers, go back and tell him I'll give him 15 more years.
But he turned his head toward the wall and pleaded with God, didn't he?
Yeah, he was pleading with God. Yeah, that's what I mean. He was asking God for mercy. And God in his mercy did extend his life, although Manasseh came out of that. But that's another story. So let's take a look at Isaiah chapter 38, 6 through 8. I'll read this one. Chapter 38, verses 6 through 8. And I will deliver you in this city from the hand of the king of Assyria, and I will defend the city. And this is a sign to you from the Lord, that the Lord will do this thing which he has spoken. Behold, I will bring the shadow on the sundial, which has gone down with the sun on the sundial of Ahaz, 10 degrees backward. So the sun returned 10 degrees on the dial by which it had gone down. So his dad didn't want to ask a sign. What's Hezekiah doing? Give me a sign. And it went back 10 degrees. Do you know how much time that is? 10 degrees? 40 minutes. God actually turned time back 40 minutes. Way, way over there in Babylon, these guys are watching the sundial, and it goes, zoop. I haven't been drinking. Have you been drinking? Did you see what I saw? Yeah, the sun went back 40 minutes. Go ahead. You have a...
Yeah.
Hey, Charles, I'm not sure
okay?
Thomas's mic is on. What number are you?
Call it 2,
White 2, I believe. Yeah,
the bottom. Yeah.
yeah, but I can't hear you. I can't hear you through the speakers. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
That's better.
Time waits for nobody, no man.
Get closer.
Okay, time waits for no man. But God, turned time back, and that's not the first time he's done it, right? He did it. Did he do it with Gideon?
Yeah, he actually stopped the earth dead in its tracks and the moon. So he actually stopped the earth and held it stopped for a full day. And then here he turned it back 40 minutes.
40 minutes.
Yes. Now, the Babylonians find out, oh, wow, something miraculous happened over in Israel to that king there, Hezekiah. Let's send some ambassadors over. So they hop on their camels, go over, and they get there. Hezekiah opens them with open arms and also open doors. Shows them all the riches. And what are they doing? They're counting up. Oh, that's probably worth it. Yeah, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And yes, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
But he failed to mention God.
Okay, he failed to mention God. And what happened years later when Nebuchadnezzar came?
They came for the money.
They came for the money. Yeah, we're just about out of time. But he had a blunder at the end of his life. We want to finish strong. I don't know if Hezekiah lost his salvation over this, but that mistake he made opened a door for more trouble for Israel because he showed them the riches. And, that's why Assyria was there. He wanted money. He wanted power. He wanted resources. He wanted money. The kings of Babylon, what do they want? They wanted the gold. They wanted the money. Did you have a comment, Thomas?
Hezekiah, did he try to take God's glory in this? He tried to steal it? He gave it to himself instead of giving it to God.
Yeah, he neglected to tell the truth, that God was the one. And that's what he should have been talking about. God turned it back. He saved me. He's the creator. Someone else have a comment?
It possibly could have gone the other way if he would have give tribute to God versus all the stuff he had.
That's right. Because ultimately, it's not the stuff; it's God. That was his true riches. He had everything he had because God had given it to him.
But don't we have sometimes the same tendency to forget God, and we go to talk about, we go telling people all the things that we got or what we did, and we forget God.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't it say that God will share his glory with nobody?
That's right. So the warning of Hezekiah is you can be fantastic all the way through, but one blunder, careless moment can undermine everything we've done. So these Bible stories, we want to finish strong, and we want to do right all the way through and trust God all the way through. I believe we're done here. And let's have a word of prayer. Father in heaven, thank you. Really, these stories are so enlightening. They're redemptive. They're encouragement to us to trust in you no matter what the world says, to follow you, put you first. You are our protector, our provider, and we can look to you. So thank you for your mercy and kindness. Thank you for this class that we had. Thank you for those who were online with us. And May they be back. We'll be having our church service here in just a few minutes. So have your Holy Spirit here. In Jesus' name, amen. Oh, thank you. I was